Hey, welcome to the Ordinary Black Professionals. I'm Nicole,
And I'm Stefan.
and this is our first episode. So each week we'll be having open and real conversations, interviewing guests on the good and the bad of working in the city and being black professionals. Each week we'll be giving a black perspective on what it's like having a career, starting your own business, and just general everyday life.
hmm And we want our podcast to be conversational, natural.
Yeah.
We want to bring the audience with us, and we just want to have an open conversation. We want to talk about topical events as well, things that are happening in society, things that's going on, like the Black Lives Matter movement, the global pandemic, and other topical events that may be going on at any particular time as well. Let's start with introducing ourselves. So, we're in our late 20s.
Yeah.
We're married.
Yeah.
We were married last year, summer 2019. We had a really nice wedding.
Yeah, so we're newlyweds.
Yeah,
I don't know if we're still counted as that,
yeah.
but
And we've been together now for over 8 years. And oh, we met at uni, didn't we?
yeah, we did. We did. We met in, well, I was in my second year of uni and you
I
were
was in
in,
my third year.
yeah,
Yeah.
at a charity event.
Mm. And we're both Black Caribbean of Caribbean descent.
Yeah,
And
both born and bred in London.
mhm,
I'm from Northwest London.
and I'm from South London.
We're both consultants, not recruitment consultants, or we're not doctors either. We're not intelligent enough for that. I am a management consultant, and Stefan is a technology consultant. And essentially, all we do is help companies solve their problems. But all of that is for another episode. We're not going to go into too much detail about that now. For now, Stefan, how did you become a technology consultant? What's your journey?
Yeah, my journey. I've always had this interest in IT. I was always good at it in school, all that stuff. So when I reached uni, I was just, studying computer science, learning programming, and doing my best, getting grades and all that stuff. But I had no idea of what I really wanted to do in IT.
Okay, 'cause that's one of the questions I was going to ask you. What did you want to be as a child?
Boy, you used to have these tower computers,
Oh yeah.
yeah, and so I used to take the case off and start playing around with the internals of the computer. And I used to like swap out CD drives and stuff like that, like as a child. I thought, oh yeah, I'm really into IT hardware. So I thought, yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing later at uni. So when I started looking for the uni course, I started looking for IT hardware courses,
Oh,
and
okay.
but that's not what I ended up doing. I ended up doing a computer science sort of more software-based course.
Okay. So you always knew IT was the route for you.
I knew IT, didn't know what in IT. IT is a real big,
So
broad field.
do you know what? You almost sound like, those people who go into medicine and they're like, "Oh, I always knew I wanted to be a doctor.
Yeah,
I always knew, it ran in my blood. I always wanted to
yeah,
be a
but they
doctor."
don't
It's the
know
same
whether
thing.
they're going to be a brain surgeon
Yeah, or a
or
GP
or a
or
GP.
like
Yeah,
working pediatrics or obs and gynae or whatever it is. Yeah. They
yeah,
just know that they want to do medicine.
yeah. That's all I knew, and I knew that at uni. And then at one point, um, I did two things. I had a summer internship at a media company where I did IT support, and I sort of realized then I had a good time, learnt a lot, but it's not something I want to do as a career.
And that was in London.
Yeah,
So the question is then, were there black people in the office?
boy, I think I remember one.
Wow. And this is a, Stephen doesn't want to name the company, but this is a big, like, global
Yeah,
organization. It wasn't any small kind of company at all.
yeah, I think I remember one of the. Yeah, that's it really.
That's the thing. But I feel like when you work in an office, when you work in the city, or just in any office, you and you're a black person or, an ethnic minority, you know where the others are.
Mm. Yeah, I tell you what, because I did a summer internship, there were other um, sort of students there with me
Okay.
who did that. There was a bunch of us, and there were other black. students who were doing the summer internship as well. Not in IT with me, but they were doing other things. But of the senior people or the people who were sort of employees that are already there, boy, probably just one that I
Okay,
can remember.
interesting.
Yeah. So I did that. I realized IT support, great, but I can't do that for the rest of my life. That's not sort of the path I want to go down. So um, went back to uni. The year after that, um, we're looking to do. I did a sandwich year as part of my course.
What
So,
made you decide to do that?
well, I just thought for me it was the right decision to do. I knew I wanted to work in IT, so the best way to do that is give myself a little boost to get into whatever industry I wanted to get into, and do a sandwich year. I thought it would help my prospects of getting a graduate job.
Sounds interesting because some people, um, because they just want to graduate and they're really keen to get out of uni, won't do a sandwich year because they just want to do their 3 years,
Yeah,
bang it out, and move on to the next thing.
there were definitely some people that made that decision, and they came out just fine too. They didn't do a sandwich year, and they came out, got their graduate job, and off they went. But
But
I
I
don't know.
think,
For me, I didn't feel that way.
yeah, I think for me, like, if I think of people who do a sandwich year, it's almost like a guaranteed grad job at the end.
That's not guaranteed. No way.
That's how I think of it as like you go and work in whatever company it is, and Kellogg's, and after the year of working there, they just say, oh, okay, yeah, come back after you've graduated uni, we'll give you a grad job. Easily, like, in the door,
Yeah.
like, sorted.
Nah. That it was it's quite a stressful experience actually. Um, but
What
yeah, I
what
mean,
part is stressful?
well,
Looking for the job or actually being there?
both. Well, first I was looking for it, but to find it, they had this little career division in my IT department who brought in companies to give us little presentations on why we should apply to do a sandwich year over there. So we had companies, big companies like Experian, and also smaller companies that were from the local area. And
All of
one
them
com
bidding for you, basically.
I wouldn't say that, but they put their they put their 2 cents in. But one other company came in, consultancy, and what they said interested me more because they said that as part of the job, we get booked out on different projects, and I will deliver IT systems for different companies in different places across the UK. And I thought, oh wow, that is what I want to do because all I know is I want to do IT at that particular point in time, and I just want to do it everywhere for everyone. And so that sounds good.
Yeah.
So I applied there, and luckily I got in. But I applied many places, other places to their competitors. I didn't get in. It was the only offer I got, so I took what I got. And not everybody got an offer. So if you didn't get a placement offer, sandwich year placement offer, you're doing your third year.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know.
yeah. There's no alternatives.
Um, yeah. So went there, and yeah, I said it's a stressful experience, but um, there was good times and bad times. But at the end of it, um, my experience started getting better at the end, and there was a big sort of decision at the end where the company tells each student who's on placement year from all these different universities whether they're going to offer them a graduate position or not.
See, this is what I was saying before. When you do a sandwich year, you kind of, I don't know, it's just get a step in the door to getting that grad job,
Yeah,
that much desired grad job that everyone wants to get when they leave uni.
I feel like it gives you one more opportunity than you would have had if you just went to uni into the third year.
Yeah,
You've done a year where you sort of met the people, you've learned inside, and I feel like even if you don't get offered a job, when you do go back to uni, do your third year and apply for jobs again, you've got something under your belt. You've got something on your
100%.
CV. You've done a year in on placement. You've got something else that differentiates you from
Yeah.
the other students,
Yeah, yeah, definitely,
graduates.
definitely.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you know, it gives you options, and I think any time that you have options in life, that is always a good thing.
Mm.
because you have the option of, kind of doing that placement year. And if you're fortunate enough to get a place, and then if you're fortunate enough again to get offered a job, you've got the option of whether you take that job, whether you not take that job, whether you look for other graduate um, schemes or jobs, whatever it is, you've just got a bit more options to play with.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so you um, got offered a, so they had to
So
make a
yeah,
decision.
they made a decision. I got offered a graduate job, and I was really happy about that. I took it straight away.
Yeah, you're not
Signed the
saying
contract
no.
straight away.
Oh,
A
so you
lot of
actually had to
other,
sign the contract.
yeah,
Okay, so what? So you couldn't really turn them down then?
you could turn them down. You got the offer. You could reject the offer and say I don't want to come here. There were
But
some
you've
people that
already
did
signed
that
a
actually.
contract.
No, I hadn't signed the contract when they gave me the offer. They gave me the offer, gave me
Oh,
a
okay.
contract, said you can come back after you graduate, and then I took it.
Right, right. On the condition that you got a 2-1 first, 2-2. What was the conditions?
I think it was like on the condition I got uh, the minimum requirement to actually apply for that job if I was a graduate. I think at the time it was a 2-1
Okay.
at the time. Um, so yeah, I got in, and so I was really happy. But on that whole year of that internship, I didn't like use any particular special skills, or I was like using the skills that I learned at uni, how to program and things like that. So I still at that point didn't know what in IT I wanted to do. I didn't know whether I would like the company that I got an offer with, but I took it anyway and said to myself, I can turn it down later if I need to, or if somebody else gives me an offer, or if I miraculously learn something, you know, in the next year of uni.
Yeah.
Went back to uni, got my degree, and nothing had changed. I went back to that company.
So, question,
Yeah.
did you ever apply to other grad jobs?
I did not.
Why?
Um,
You didn't give it, as I said earlier, options are always good, and you didn't give yourself any options.
well, I had the one option on the table. I decided to stay with it, and I think partly was my experience the year before when I was applying for the internships, and I didn't get any offers from all the companies I applied for,
Yeah.
and the process for applying was difficult. For me, it was difficult. And I just thought to myself, I'm trying to get this degree. I'm really trying hard to get this 2-1. I've got a job on the table. Let me not bother
Yeah.
applying for any of I'm just gonna not have that stress.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I took it and I went back to that company, and that's sort of when my sort of career started because I went back and that's when I started um, turning into this technology consultant that I am today.
Right. Okay. Because the company you worked at, um, that's what they kind of focused on, like different technologies and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Consultancy that delivered like different technologies for different customers, and it all that mattered was what the customer wanted, and we made it work really.
And what sort of size are we talking about, this company?
Global, yeah, really big. Um, yeah, so I went back there.
And what sort of like pay and stuff? Like, don't, have to say like the number, but was like a typical grad salary, or was it like higher, or like
Um,
entry level grad salary, or was it below average or above?
I think it's maybe mid mid to high for a graduate. I'm not really sure. Uh, I think depending on the size of the company, right, the graduate salaries can be
Ps-
standard quite high,
Yeah,
or if it's a small
that's
company, then you'll be like in the low 20s
that's
or just below there.
true. That's true.
So
And
it's
then
hard to say.
that's true. And then you've got some like strategy consulting companies where they're
Yeah,
paying grads like 40 to 50K right from the get-go.
yeah.
It wasn't that much.
So I went back there and yeah, started learning these technology consulting skills, and I also started learning a skill that would sort of carry me through the job market. And I started learning a lot more about infrastructure, servers, and I started realizing that my skills and my interest was going more in that direction.
Right.
And so all the stuff in the cloud, servers, um, how websites run in the back end and all that sort of stuff is where my focus was. And then my focus started shifting from that into automation. And and so I picked up a skill that some people refer to as maybe DevOps skills. Some people hate that term, but basically I picked up um, some automation engineering skills.
Okay. And I guess, is it true that if you work in IT, that's where the money's at? Because that's what I was told growing up. Everyone always like, get into IT, getting into IT, that's where the money's going to be. Is
You
that
know what?
true, or is that
My Yeah, I mean,
lies
our
and
black
myth?
parents told us that. My parents, they always pushed me towards IT. They did think, oh, it's the future. It's maybe
Oh
where the
yeah,
money's
yeah,
at
yeah.
the
You hear that one
time.
as well.
Yeah.
Or what people say a lot of is, you're always going to have a job if you work in IT. Have you not heard that one? You're always going to have a job if you work in IT.
I,
I
I've not heard
mean,
that one, but in
have you
some
not?
ways it's true.
In some ways, yeah, it is true.
Yeah.
And unless you work in IT and you're actually working to automate like your job or something like that, or
Mm,
like automate, like create automation so other people don't need to
yeah.
have a job.
So yeah, I picked up those skills, and cloud engineering skills as well. So I started learning how to use the Amazon Web Services cloud, and and then well, project after project came just as they promised, and I started. I worked there for a few years, just delivering for different customers throughout the years.
What kind of clients, like what industries?
Oh, banks a lot of the time. If not bank, I did hospitality companies. I did um, retail. Um, yeah, that's
Okay, it's like a
a few of
wide
those.
range
Yeah,
of
it didn't matter
industries.
what industry it was because the technology is not that different across industry.
Well, this is the
But
thing, and we'll talk about this more in like upcoming episodes around like consulting and things like
mm,
that, what it involves in. But I find that when you have a particular skill set and you move around to different, clients and do different projects, it's really the same thing again and again and again. And there's like slight nuances and complexities depending on the project and the client, but ultimately it's the same.
mm,
Like there's not much difference in it. And each client will act like their problem is unique and rare. And as you get more and more experience in the game, you realize it's just not like the case,
yeah,
you know. Um,
yeah, yeah. So I did that for a few years, and then after that, I decided I wanted to become a contractor because I felt like I had these skills that again, I could be my own consultant this time, and I could work for all these companies under my own sort
okay.
of reputation.
So, like, explain how contracting works for people who don't know.
Yeah, it
What is a contractor? Like, some people may not know what that is.
it's like an independent consultant, independent self-employed worker who um, who offers his services as a business or as an individual to another company and says, right, I've got these skills, I have this experience that you may not have in your own company, within your own employees or on your project, and um, I can help you in whatever way you need. And these companies do need some specialist skills in certain areas. Not always technology-based specialists. A lot of contractors I've met are like management, um project
Yeah,
management, um, business analysts, all that
yeah.
sort of stuff, right?
Range of different
Um,
consult
or
contractors.
sometimes these companies, they've got the skills already. They've got lots of business analysts, but they just don't have enough. They just need one more, and they don't have the time to hire someone. It takes a month for them to come off of their current contract where they work. So a contractor can come in tomorrow, and so you just bring somebody in to help you get through a certain time period or
Okay.
certain milestones, and yeah, the contract is basically an agreement between you and that company saying, I'm going to work with you for this period of time, and we're going to deliver X, Y, Z. And once that's done, the contract is up, and you can renew it, extend it. But yeah, that contract's done.
An important thing about being a contractor is you can not a guaranteed job basically.
Yeah, you're
So you can
self-employed.
come into so you can come into work on the Friday and be told, sorry, on a Monday and be told kind of Tuesday afternoon that that's it. Your gig's up, time for you to leave, and it's up for you to kind of find that next job that you're looking for. And I think um, this is probably, another podcast episode. It'd be good for you to speak about your experiences of being a contractor and being black and all of that stuff that that entails. Because I think there's a lot of misconceptions around what a contractor is and how much they earn and things like that. So it'd be
Yeah,
good to kind of dive into that a little bit more and talk about um yeah, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and some of the hard facts and truths about being a contractor.
yeah,
It's not as easy or as as people think it is, and I think maybe people you don't earn as much money as you think it is either.
yeah. So I did that, and then after that, I went back into being an employee again.
Why did you decide to do that?
Um, it it started to become difficult to be a contractor. The market was heavily flooded with people with my skills, contractor skills, and the government at the time was changing the law
Oh yeah.
to make it more difficult for companies to hire contractors because there are some contractors, they're meant to be there, as I say, for a certain period of time, but there's some contractors that are in one place for 10 years.
Years.
And
I've worked with contractors who have been in the company for years.
yeah, and that's not how it works. In that, if you're there for that long doing one job, then there is an argument that you're not actually a contractor, you're much
You're a
more of an
perm
employee.
employee, yeah, 100%.
And um, and that's the reason why the government was changing that law.
Yeah.
And so a lot of companies were avoiding contractors at that point. So in order to make it easy for myself and bring a bit more stability to my life, I decided to look again for permanent employee jobs. And yeah, so now I decided to take up a job working for a product company. So consultancy is different because you go around to different customers. The customer says, um, "Oh, I have this problem." You come up with a solution, you recommend it to them, and you implement it. Um, but product is different. Instead, we make a product, um, improve it, and we just sell as much of it as possible.
Yeah.
And my job now is still a consultant, but to talk to the customers who have bought the product and get them to get the most out of it, make the most value of our product so that they think it's amazing, they continue to renew the license on it,
Yeah.
and they um, come back again and again. So
Okay.
yeah, my job as well can also be about just as a consultant, um, understanding their organization and how they work, and positioning the product in a way where it works for different companies in different ways.
Okay.
Yeah, and yeah,
So
that's it really.
there's still that variety there, um, that I guess the quote unquote like traditional consulting gig has.
Yeah, I do a little bit of consulting now, um, and I think the longer continue doing working in the product company, I'll probably do a lot more consulting.
Yeah.
Um, but the focus is really on the technical value that the product gives, and the more technical value it gives, the more you can position business value as well. And it's all really about maximizing business value. That's where the money is.
Okay.
So that's my sort of career story. Do you want to give your journey?
Took a slightly different route than you, and I did A levels. So I did English literature, maths, history, and economics. And I did maths and economics so I could be an investment banker because my dad told me that makes lots of money. And then I did history and English lit just in case I wanted to be a teacher. And I was always good at English and history, so I also thought that would be
Okay.
a good fit.
The two different sides of the scale there, investment banker and teacher.
Yeah, yeah. So I was leaving myself wide open for options,
Hmm.
basically. Um, I quickly realized I wasn't very good at doing A-level maths, so I dropped that subject and just stuck with economics, English lit, and history, and then went off to university to do English literature
Okay.
and focused on that for 4 years. And whilst I was at uni, I did a year abroad in Spain as well.
Okay. Why did you choose to do English literature?
Because I decided to go for a subject that I really enjoyed and was good at. And I had always enjoyed English lit growing up. So I thought I would do a subject that I enjoyed. And also my dad also said to me that English lit is a respected subject and it'd be a respected degree, which would open up doors for me when I was ready to graduate. So I thought it'd be a strong, solid subject to pick.
Okay. All right. And you said you did a year abroad. What were you doing there?
Studying. And I worked a bit as well as a babysitter. I did lots of odd
Right.
jobs when I was in Spain, mainly looking after other people's kids.
What, you was doing English or Spanish or what?
It just English lit, just studying. So I was studying English literature over in Spain. All the texts, all the books, everything was all in English. I was
Right.
just doing it in Spain.
So was the curriculum different?
Um, yeah, it was. So we had some more kind of Spanish literature, but other than that, it was mainly the same. We did probably a lot more American literature as well. Um, but it was the same. I would say the only difference is that I did a lot more different subjects. So with my degree in England, I each term I only had two core modules, whereas in Spain it was broken up into smaller chunks. So I was studying a lot of different types of literature in a term.
Right. Okay. So how was that? How was Spain? Why did you choose to go to Spain? Why Spain?
Well, I actually chose to go Portugal to begin with, and because of a few mix-ups that the university made, I decided to not go Portugal anymore, and at the last minute swapped my option and decided to go over to Madrid and live over there. And why did I do a year abroad to begin with? Why not? It was literally that. It was like, why not do it? It was my cheapest year at uni because I don't know if they still do it now, but I had the Erasmus grant, so I didn't have to pay anything to my home university. The Erasmus gave me a grant, I think it's like 3,000 or 4,000 pounds, essentially was free money. And I don't think I took out a student loan that year because I just used that Erasmus grant to pay for me to live abroad. So it was like by far my cheapest year at uni. And working over in Spain paid me really well. So when I was looking after people's kids for 4 or 5 hours in the evening, I was getting paid 100 euros.
Okay.
So I was getting paid really good money, and I
Yeah.
was doing that every week to look after like two kids. So it was it was such a good year. And I had a few jobs teaching English as well, which again paid me like 70 euros cash in hand for a couple of hours of work.
Right. Okay. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it was a sweet gig. Um, so yeah, I did that, did my finished up my degree. Well, actually, before I graduated from uni in my final year, I decided to apply for loads and loads and loads of grad jobs because I realized then that, well, I thought that to kind of make it in the city or to be somebody, I had to work in a large organization, and the bigger, the better. So I went and applied for hundreds of grad jobs, and I was looking in the area of procurement and supply chain.
All right. So you've now gone from teacher to investment banker, and now you're talking about procurement and supply chain.
Yeah.
How how did you end up in looking at procurement and supply chain?
Do you know what? I don't even know. I don't know how I got to procurement and supply chain. I think I was just looking at different companies and seeing what grad jobs they offered, clicking around, realized I don't want to do marketing, I don't want to do HR, and just kind of stumbling across procurement and supply chain. It's sounding a bit interesting, doing a bit more research and deciding to settle on that. So essentially, what it is for the listeners out there that don't know, it's how you will procure certain items. So, for example, if you're McDonald's, how do you procure the potatoes that will eventually turn into the chips that people will eat? So, that contract that you have with that particular farmer, and then that supply chain is everything you need to make sure that potato ends up to in the McDonald's that are sending the that are given selling the chips to the customers. So that complete chain of how that potato kind of goes from the farmer to the building that's going to turn it into the actual fries, to where it's then going to get transported from the frozen fries over to the McDonald's place that's then fries it and sells it to the customer fresh. So looking at all of that, the procurement of the potato, then the supply chain of that potato to eventually to the McDonald's store.
But how did you come across procurement?
That's what I'm saying. I don't know. I don't remember. So I think what it was me just looking at random graduate jobs because I was
Right,
adamant I must work in a big company. Just logging onto a website for a big organization, clicking around and just stumbling across it where it said procurement and supply chain. And I was like, yeah, that sounds interesting.
right.
It was literally just that because I had absolutely no idea what that industry was
Let's just go
when
back
I was
for a
at in
second.
uni.
Why again did you say you wanted to work in a big company? What was it about that?
The prestige.
The prestige.
The prestige. There's something when you tell someone you if you say to someone, "Oh, I work at Deloitte," people will be like, "Ooh, wow, that's pretty impressive. You work for a big four." And so I wanted that like prestige. I wanted to go around being like, "Oh yeah, I work for this top company." Like that's the only reason I wanted that. I wanted to be able to say, "Oh yeah, I work for a company that's multi-million dollar company. It's global around the world." And also, that's all I'd known. Both my parents work for big companies. So in my mind, I also had to do the same thing. And working for a big company gave you more stability and job, job assurance and things
Right.
like that.
Okay. Okay.
And
Yeah.
most importantly, that's where I thought the money was at.
Mm.
Because I had in my mind through doing research that the grad jobs are offering, 28, 32K.
Right.
And I was like, I have to earn that. Anything less won't do.
Okay. So you set yourself a bar.
So I set myself a bar. Yeah. And applied to many, 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 many different types of jobs. So I applied for Kellogg's, Sky, Unilever, Mondelez, BHS, you name it, I applied there.
Okay.
Got through to a few of the assessment centres. So in the end, I don't know how many I got to the top of my head, but it must have been 10 plus assessment centres. So I was always the bride, but I never got the job. So I was always the bridesmaid, but
Mhm.
never quite the bride. And unfortunately, with procurement and supply chain, they tended to only hire like one or two people. So that again meant that I was never quite got in. So they'd have like 10 people. I remember interviewing at Kellogg's. I think they had like 20 or 15 people at the assessment center, and they were only hiring two. So
Right.
the odds were just not in my favor, and I
Oh,
didn't
that's
get the
hard.
job.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really, really hard. Really hard. And then again, like the processes and stuff, they're so long and time consuming. So yeah,
There's some industries or some areas of work that are just harder to get into for that reason. They just don't need as many people.
yeah, yeah,
And so therefore the the barrier to get in is just so
mad high.
high and difficult,
Yeah,
and the competition is still there's still a lot of people coming out of uni that are looking for those type of jobs. Most of them won't get them. I think like being a solicitor or something is similar
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
as
To be a
well.
solicitor is mad hard.
Yeah, like the number of people who do law degrees and want to move into that field, but at the end they never actually do
Mm,
because they just can't get a place.
yeah. I think the problem I had was that I was just mad bougie because I was adamant that I was not going to work for below 28K. So I was like, I came out of uni, or I was in the final year of uni. I thought, well, I have an English degree, so therefore I'm obviously worth 28K. No experience, no experience in the working world, so therefore they must pay me 28K. So I was bougie and did not want to work my way up. So after applying for lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of different jobs, my parents and leaving uni and not having anything, my parents said to me, just go for something that's lower level and work your way up. And I
Yeah.
just outright refused. I was like, no, this is not an option. Um, so eventually I realized I had to apply for smaller companies because the big ones just were not hiring this great talent that I had. So, and yeah,
That's a real thing though, because a lot of people leave uni,
and
um,
they think they're the thing.
and they think they're
They
amazing
think they're the
and they
shit.
feel good. You know, you just got your first class or whatever, and you feel, yeah, the world is my oyster. You know, everybody will want me. I'm just the best thing out here,
Best thing
and there's
since sliced
nobody else
bread.
like me.
And I tell you what, there are many other people like you, as I learned at the assessment centers. People who are super competent as well.
I worked once and working with some like young people coming in and grads, and I remember a manager saying to them that your mum tells you that you're amazing, right? But you're not. I always remember that because it was just so funny him telling them that, and they were just they were shocked to hear that.
Like,
They were
I
like,
bet they were.
"What?
What?
What do you
What?
mean?"
What do you mean? What do you mean? Well, my mom left. My mom told me this morning that I was great. So yes, so I started applying to kind of smaller companies, and that also proved quite difficult as they w- weren't too happy with the fact that I had an English literature degree. So that was challenging because as I was trying to again get into this procurement, get into this supply chain, a lot of the smaller companies wanted you to have business degrees, economics degrees, degrees that were more analytical, not not an English degree. And so a lot of the times when I'd go to the interviews, they would say to me, "Oh, are you sure you don't want to do marketing, or is this a stopgap for becoming a teacher, or are you sure this is the kind of work that you really want to do? Is it not journalism or something else?" So again, this degree, this English degree, which my dad told me would open up so many doors when I left uni,
They actually put you in a
was actually
box.
putting me in a box and was hindering me
Mm.
because I wasn't trying to become a
Being a teacher.
teacher or
Mm.
journalism or whatever is the quote unquote typical degrees that English students do.
Right. This even comes down again. That's another form of sort of diversity. There's diversity of thought as well, and the
Yeah,
type of people that you hire,
yeah,
and they were
100%.
just not having it. They were just like, an English degree person cannot be applying for my job.
Yeah, we want people who are all analytical thinkers and who think in this
One
particular type,
way,
this one particular
which is how
way.
I think, and
Yeah,
how I think everybody else should think,
everyone else should
just
think,
like me.
yeah, to be able to work in this particular area.
Yeah.
Absolute nonsense, complete bullshit.
Which is a common theme that I've seen throughout my whole
Same,
career.
same. I see it all the time, all the time. So, after a lot of knockbacks, I finally did get a job. Wasn't in a big organization at all. Nope. It was in a three-person company. I was a third person, and it was a small tuition company that was local to where I live. So the ambitions of
And
me working in the city with my suit, doing my thing
yeah,
on my 28K was
that
not
that went away.
that went away. That was not my life. Wasn't on 28K. Wasn't a decent salary, but it wasn't 28K. Wasn't in the city. Never wore a suit. Took the bus to
At
work.
least it was local.
It was local, saved money on travel. So I did that. Yeah, so it was a small tuition company. I was the office manager there. So I did office manager activities, some admin, taking payments from parents and things like that. After about 3 months of working there, I was eventually let go because the company couldn't afford to keep me on anymore. So I was right back at square one looking for a job. And in the end, I ended up being unemployed for about 3 months, which is not a long amount of time in the grand scheme of things, but at the time felt like the longest 3 months ever.
Mm.
Because remember, I had just spent pretty much the whole of my final year applying for grad jobs, going to interviews, just being like proper chomping at the bit to then finally get a job, to then now having to go back to searching all over again when I felt like I had just done that. And when even I was struggling even just to get like just to get retail jobs or temp admin jobs and things like that. So going back and
Which is funny because your CV,
I'm the
you
king of
know,
retail, well, the
is
queen of retail.
yeah. I mean, you've done a lot of retail
Yeah,
from what
Waterstones, John
age?
Lewis, 16.
16.
Waterstones, John Lewis,
But at that time, you still
loads of
couldn't get
jobs,
anything.
nothing. So, yeah, that was a really tricky, hard time. And again, my expectations of working in the city just massively, I just wasn't even applying for jobs like that. I was applying for jobs that are much more local, small scale, kind of more junior jobs, so I could work my way up. Eventually, after 3 months, I did get a job working in another small company. Um, I think it was like around North London side, basically providing different um, transcription services to NHS trusts. Wasn't a job that I enjoyed. Was only there for about six months or so,
Mm.
and during those 6 months was actively looking to leave, looking to work somewhere else. And
But
it
that
was
was your first taste of like consultancy.
yeah, because it was going into different NHS trusts kind of encouraging them to work differently and to adopt another way of working to be able to help them be more, well, the idea was to help them be more efficient in the long run. And during this time, you said to me, oh, well, your company is looking for people because their grad scheme for later on that year is going to open up.
Yeah.
And I can't remember if I was and ahhing, whether I think I was. I don't think I was 100% sure whether consulting was for me and whether that was something I wanted to do. But in the end, I thought I'd just give it a go because why not? And applied, got through the different stages, eventually got to the assessment center. And I remember being in, once I'd gone to the assessment center because I took a day off work, being in work and I got a missed call from the company. And I thought, oh no, why are they calling me to tell me that I didn't get the job? Oh gosh, this is what am I gonna do? I need to look for more jobs. It's gonna be awful. I haven't got the job now, feeling all disappointed. So then on my lunch break, I'd always make sure I leave the office on my lunch break. I decided to listen to the voice message. And on the voice message, the woman was like, "Oh, congratulations, we want to offer you a job." And I was like, "Whoa, oh my gosh," jumping up and down. Because like a big company that my dreams are coming true. Because I was like, this is a big organization that I was after. And I'm finally gonna get the job. It was the best day. The best day. I think I called, so yeah, listen to the rest of the voice message. I called my mum, I called you. It was just, it was just the best. A year later, after applying and everything, and having the goal of working for a big company, it had finally come true.
Mm.
And I think, a few days later, I came back into the office and I handed in my notice, and I was like, "See ya, peace, deuces, I'm out of here." On to bigger and better things. Um, so yeah, eventually moved on to that company. Worked there. I was there for about 2.5, 2 and a bit years, working primarily in financial services, in one financial services company and moving around to different projects and doing work there. And I did have a good time overall and grew and learned lots of different bits and pieces about consulting. but eventually made the move to go to a smaller consultancy company, which is
Which you
again,
said you'd never
which I
do.
would never do because I wanted the prestige of having a big name, which
But
I've
you
now,
grew up, you got older, didn't
I
you?
grew up, I got older, I now realize that just means nothing. So yeah, I decided to take the plunge, move to a much, much, much smaller company. Company I'm at now had, just over 100 people compared to the company that I was at before, which had hundreds of thousands of people globally around the world. This one is much, as I said, only just over 100 people. And uh, yeah, it's a completely different experience and have definitely, in the same way that I did in my previous company, in this current company, have learned and grown and developed in lots of different ways,
Okay.
in lots of different industries.
So what's the
So,
type of things that you did
what at my current company?
at both?
So, a lot of business analysis work, project management, lead. In my current company now, I'm leading teams, the diversity and inclusion lead, as well as being my day job as being a management consultant. Yeah, so it's just very diverse and different, and it's not what I. It's funny because when I first left uni, as I said, I did want that big grand grad job. I was gonna be working in a city with a known company that if you tell them the name, they're like, "Oh yeah, I know exactly what that is." It's funny to see where I am now because if I was to tell people the name of my company, most people wouldn't have,
Yeah.
I don't know, haven't heard of it.
But why did you leave the big company for the small one then?
I felt like I wanted to be somewhere where I wasn't just one of many, and I wanted to be in a company where people knew who I was, people knew my name, and I felt like I had more responsibility and ownership over my work. And I found for me personally, being in a big company, on projects where there was 50, 60, 80 people, it just felt like I was one of many and I was just giving a slither of a piece of work to do in a massive puzzle.
Right.
Whereas now in a company that I'm in, you can be, junior and still have a lot of responsibility, and you can still be managing a team and have a lot of ownership on and autonomy over something you're doing because it is just so small. They haven't got time to wait and and kind of say, oh well, let's wait until you get up to manager level before you can handle that. They will trust and give you those opportunities a lot earlier. And another reason why I moved is I wanted to move somewhere that was just a little bit that was not as hierarchical. Now everywhere has hierarchies because senior managers will do senior manager work and things
Yeah.
like that. But somewhere where it just didn't feel like so rigid. It wasn't so much like, well, you're only an analyst, so therefore you can only do A and B, but a senior manager or manager can do all of this other stuff. Wanted to feel a little bit more flat in hierarchy, which is what, from my experience, or at least at my company, that's what I get. It's a bit more responsibility and then it's not as hierarchical.
Right.
So yeah, that's basically the reason why I decided to move. I would never rule out a big company. So I would never, I know some people move to a small company and they go, I will never move to a Deloitte or to a KPMG. No, 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 it's too big, it's too big. I'm small, small company and boutique consultancy through and through.
Mm.
For me, I just don't feel that way. I would happily go back and work at a big company.
Yeah. I've heard people say that as well. I've heard people say I'll only work for startups as well.
I don't feel that way.
Yeah.
Because you have to think about the whole package. I have to think about money, where
Hmm.
I'm going to be, what does that consultancy want from me? All that, everything is taken into consideration. What level am I going in?
Hmm.
If I'm going into Deloitte as an MD, yeah, then maybe that sounds like a sweet gig because I'm an MD level than being junior. So it's all just you have to take everything into consideration. I never say never. Who knows where you'll be in for like 30 years time or 10, 15 years time, whatever it is. So I would never say never to not going back to a big company.
Right.
Just at the moment right now, a small company works for me.
Okay.
But yeah, that's my journey. And in the weeks, you'll get to hear more and more about Stefan and I's journeys and careers and a bit more about where we've come from.
Yes, so I think we've heard a bit about our careers, our introduction, about us a little bit more. In more episodes coming up, we're going to hear about other people, our guests as well,
Yes,
and also our experiences. Like we've talked about our career journey, but let's go into more detail on specific areas and the job hunt you did, and
all of that stuff.
the difficult times, but also a lot of good times. And there's probably some great, learning opportunities that we could share that we learned
Yeah,
throughout our career.
definitely. And then again, just given that undertone of this being black in these spaces as well,
Definitely,
you
which
know,
is probably going to be a big theme of our podcast.
yeah. A big one being, what it's like to be, for me as a woman, being black and going into work with all my different hairstyles, different reactions I get there.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that in an episode for sure. Okay,
Okay, so we will catch up with you all next week. Bye.
bye.
If you have any questions or dilemmas, email us on ordinaryblackprofessionals@gmail.com, or we can be found on Instagram and Twitter at ordinaryblackprofessionals. Also, don't forget to follow us, subscribe, and leave a rating and comment.